Illinois, where today's high school baseball game of the week will feature the Plainfield Wildcats of Coach Don Martin, 6-9 overall on the year, and tied for first place in the Little Seven Conference with Batavia and Wabansie Valley at 4-2. And they'll take on another team from way out in the pastures, the Lemont Indians. Coach Dwayne Cota's ball club is 10-12 on the season, 4-2 overall, and tied for first with Elmwood Park in the Northeast Conference, although the Indians beat Elmwood Park already earlier this year. These two teams have already played this week. Earlier in the week in an air-plagued ball game, a one-hitter, but Plainfield came out on top 1-0. Lemont is here in Plainfield to make that score play little effect on what their score may be before this game is out. From Plainfield, Illinois, from the home of the Cats, our high school baseball game of the week features Plainfield against Lemont. Good afternoon again, everyone. Joe Passion along with Jack Szymanski. We've got two teams, another nice windy ball game to do the broadcast from. And like last week when we broadcasted from Bolingbrook in that Lincoln Way win over the Raiders, the wind was blowing right in on the hitters. Ditto that again for today. You talked last week in our telecast when the weather was in these similar type conditions. That's an advantage for the pitcher.
It is. You get a few more miles an hour on your fastball. I noticed the Cubs today pulled out a 1-0 victory with over Los Angeles, and so a very similar type of wind situation there. They talk about Wrigley Field being a hitter's park. I don't know. They did some statistics lately, and I think the wind blows in more than it does out there. But anyway, I think it does put some advantage in toward the pitcher. I think maybe sometimes changes the coach's strategy a little bit too. Sometimes they play for more of a one-run game than the big inning. So we'll see what happens today with these two teams.
Well, as far as comparing the managers, we have two entirely different personalities. The wily old veteran in Don Martin, who has been around here now for 12 years at Plainfield, heading the varsity program, a team that won the Little Seven Conference last year, going 14-4, while the Lemont Indians are led by a rookie coach. Rookie only in the sense this is his first year as head coach of the Lemont Indians, Dwayne Cota, a young, fiery type of coach against the more laid-back style of Don Martin.
Well, Don Martin's been around. We talked earlier in the week, and I talked about something coming over here. In your memories of my memories of my coaching, I have a bad memory about this field. This is where I earned my first varsity loss. We started out my first year, we were 8-0, and I didn't think we were ever going to lose. And they broke our bubble when we came over here. We lost the game, and of course we lost a lot more after that. But Don's done a great job. Took over for Arnie Blaylock about 12 years ago, and Arnie had done a great job out here. And Plainfield is really steeped in tradition. I don't know much about the Lemont program over the last few years. Years and years ago, we used to see Lemont a little bit more. But I do know that, again, another town steeped in a lot of tradition has had some athletic success over the years with the great athletic director there, John Jones, and other guys. So, I think these two teams probably will be pretty evenly matched with the size of schools they have and the ability of the athletes that they usually have. So we should see a good ball game, as we saw earlier in the week when it was a 1-0 game.
Well, even Coach Martin admits that Lemont may be one of the finer Class A programs in the Will County area. It's difficult to argue with that point because the AD, John Jones, has done a great job in their women's and men's program over at Lemont High School. And like Plainfield, it's a community that thrives around the wins and losses of the Indians, as they do here in Cat Country. So that should make it for a great rivalry on a beautiful afternoon. Again, a bit windy, but the sun is out. Lemont out here taking infield, and we'll be ready for the first pitch of today's high school baseball game of the week on Channel 15. The Plainfield Wildcats against the Lemont Indians. And Jack and I will be back with that first pitch in the entire 7-inning ball game after this timeout. From Wildcat Country and a beautiful afternoon for what else but our national pastime, Will County High School baseball on our game of the week as we open up the top half of the first inning in Lemont. The visiting Indians of Coach Dwayne Cota will lead it off with Sean O'Shaughnessy, the center fielder, batting .393 on the year. Will lead it off for the Lemont Indians, coming in at 10-12 overall, while the Plainfield Wildcats will send their ace, right-hander Dave Schleben on the hill, and a swing and a miss, and strike two on the swing against O'Shaughnessy. Good afternoon again, everyone. Joe Passion along with Jack Szymanski, our baseball analyst on our Channel 15 High School Baseball Game of the Week. A good look at Schleben on the hill for the Wildcats in their gray uniforms with the green and gold trim. And fouling one off to the right side, O'Shaughnessy. And Tim Markley, the designated hitter, will be in the on-deck circle. It'll be followed by Brian Phelan. And looking at Schleben out there, Jack, your thoughts about the kid as a pitcher, as you once were yourself?
Well, Dave's a pretty classic right-handed pitcher that throws a fastball and breaking ball. He was their leading pitcher last year with a 7-1 record. And this year, though, is 1-3. He's had some rough luck. As we see a ground ball to first, picked up for the first out. But he's pretty much a classic right-hander that throws a fastball and curveball, Joe.
First baseman Justin Ahoyt with the play unassisted over at first base, and O'Shaughnessy grounds out for the first out here in the top half of the first, and that'll bring up Tim Markley, the designated hitter. Schleben on the season has had a little rough going, but he was a tremendously successful pitcher last year with a record of 7-1, and is trying to get his control back on a more consistent basis this year, as a called strike on Markley opens it up. Our home plate umpire today is Bud Abbott out of Manuka. The first base umpire, Tom Tallarico, out of Morris. And a hard shot to the shortstop, and this should be an easy play for Priest. No, in the dirt, and it will go as an error. So the Plainfield shortstop, Chris Priest, one of the outstanding young athletes in the Will County area, unable to get a good grasp on that ball. He throws it in the dirt, and he, of course, is a bit disappointed with himself. But on first base is Tim Markley on the error to the shortstop, and that'll bring up Brian Phelan, the Lemont second baseman. And this has been a problem that Plainfield has had this year, Jack. According to their coach, head coach Don Martin, although the pitching has been their strength this year, he admits that the problems the pitchers are having is consistent defense behind them. And of course, you as a pitcher know how important that is to a pitcher's ERA and their win-loss record.
Well, Joe, in fact, another surprising statistic that Don told me is their pitchers themselves have made 11 errors this year. And, they talk about that. The fielding of the pitcher, he's handling the ball all the time. He's throwing pickoffs. He's getting balls hits back to him, boy. And if he makes errors from that position, you're really going to be in trouble. So I don't know if you can blame it all on the players behind him as much as the pitchers themselves.
A little soft pop-up second base side out in the right field goes the second baseman. Sean Carter makes a nice stab of the ball for out number 2. So Phelan on a check swing to the right field and shallow right, picked off by the Plainfield second baseman Sean Carter. And so that's out number 2 for the Indians here in the top of the first. And we'll bring the cleanup hitter, Rich Zizik, to the plate. Zizik, the Lemont shortstop, batting .510 on the year. He's their leading hitter and leading RBI man with 20 ribbies.
Boy, if he can continue that .510 average throughout the season, he's really going to be a highly recruited player. That's really hard to do over a long course of a season. I thought Brian Phelan there got tied up a little bit. Schleben got his fastball inside. He got the ball in the fist. He really didn't take that bad of a swing, but he just got it on the fist. And with this wind today, that's really going to hold the ball in the infield.
A beautiful day, and of course, always wonderfully manicured baseball diamond here at Plainfield High School. Don Martin does a tremendous job, not only as head coach, but as head maintenance man. And you know how many hours you had to spend at Joliet Catholic being the head maintenance man over there at Ingalls Park, and that does take up a lot of time. And you can always tell, though, what ballparks get a lot of tending, loving care from their coaches, and this is one of them.
Hey, Joe, it's important. It's important that the kids have a good field to play on. I know the last few years over at Ingalls, we were a little disappointed in ourselves because we weren't getting the job done like we used to in terms of the infield grass. You know, you hate to see balls bouncing out and bouncing off guys' jaws, because all they're going to do is become shy of the baseball, and they're not going to be able to show their true talent. So, hey, it is a big part of your coaching game, unless you've got a full maintenance crew, which I don't know how many high schools have that like they do on the professional level.
I don't think a lot do, Jack, but I can always tell by going to the high school diamonds whose front lawn at home probably looks the best, and I'm sure you always had a well-manicured front lawn.
No, completely the other way, Joe. You never spend any time on your own lawn. You hear that when you get home. You're spending all your time out on the field worrying about how that looks, but...
make sure that diamond's okay, though,
that's right? That's more important, I guess. I'll tell you about this field. The last time I came here a few years back, they didn't have dugouts. They didn't have it all enclosed. They had a snow fence in the outfield. Now they got full fencing, and boy, it really makes for a nice park.
325 down the lanes, or down the lines, and 350 to straightaway center field. There you see the leadoff runner, and a swing and a miss for strike two against Rick Cizik. Over at first base is Tim Markley, who reached base on an error by the shortstop, Priest, for Plainfield. When the Cats come up in the bottom half of the first, we'll see Moeller, Carter, and Priest, along with the rest of their lineup that we'll talk more about when we see the Cats come up on offense. Right now on defense, from third to first, Kruger, Priest, Carter, and at first base is Ahoyd, and there's out number 3 here in the top half of the first as Cizik goes down on the strikeout. And so that's 3 away. So for the Lemont Indians here in their first at-bats at Plainfield in this non-conference game for both clubs. No runs for the Indians, no hits, an error, and a man left. And we go to the bottom of the first with no score and a nice crowd on hand here. And the dugouts that Jack talked about, which are really a nice situation here because they're a little bit more below ground level, and that helps the players get down away from the ball. And you can see the good look of the diamond from our backstop camera up high above, and from our dugout cameras, a good, well-manicured diamond. And this has been pretty nice spring, although it was cold earlier in the season and we haven't had a heck of a lot of rain. We're seeing that when grass and the diamonds are well tended to, they can show it, and this one certainly does here.
I'll say, and, you know, when you're this far away from your school building, it's nice to have some dugouts, because when the wind picks up, and when it does start getting down below zero, it seems you need some breakage of that wind. A lot of times you're out of these fields, and just like we're sitting here today, Joe, wide open spaces, it really affects the way we can do anything. So I think they really appreciate the fact that they've built these block dugouts here.
Well, the pitcher today for the Lemont Indians will be Ryan Madden, who is 2-0 on the season with an ERA of 3.15. As you get a look at our situation here, just to the right of the backstop on our Continental Cable Vision of Will County High School baseball game of the week. Ryan Madden is getting his first start of the season here. He's just a sophomore. He's been their middle relief man thus far during the course of the regular season, but because the Indians are so thin on pitching, that Coach Dwayne Cota decided he's going to give Madden a start here, and we'll find out how he does against the leadoff hitter, Craig Moeller, the left fielder, and Moeller looks at a strike on the outside corner of the plate to even the count at 1-1. The Lemont defense from third to first. In the infield is Greg Beach at third base. The shortstop is Rich Cizik. And a hard shot in the left field, and Moeller will open up the bottom of the first for the Cats with a line shot single into left field. To complete the defense for the Lemont Indians from third to first again, Beach at third base, Cizik at shortstop. The second baseman is Brian Phelan, and over at first base, Ralph Pakula. In the outfield for Lemont today, Craig Stout, who handled that line drive a moment ago. Out in center is Sean O'Shaughnessy, and in right field is Joel Suchecki. The catcher behind the plate, Matt Malik, and the pitcher, of course, you're taking a look at is Ryan Madden. Coming up now, the number 2 man in Coach Don Martin's order is Sean Carter, the Plainfield second baseman, left-handed hitter, and he looks at a ball in the outside corner for ball 1.
Coach Martin told me earlier this week that he feels that Mr. Carter here is their top player, one of their top 2 players on the field. Does a great job. I watched him before the game, put a lot of time in doing some flip drills. Seems to work hard at this game.
And he hits a little grounder to second base. The handle by Phelan will get the runner at first for the fielder's choice putout, and that will advance Moeller over to second base. But Carter, back to the dugout, moves the runner along, and that will bring up the number 3 hitter in the Plainfield order, the outstanding young shortstop, Chris Priest.
Chris, this is third year in the varsity as a junior. As a freshman and sophomore, he hit over 400. Just an outstanding player. I guess both of those years he also had kind of a slow start. I believe this year he's hitting in the 290s, and you look for him to really pick that up as year goes along. And
he hits a shot, a fine defensive stop by the shortstop, Rich Cizik, but an infield base hit for Chris Priest, and the Cats have runners aboard at first and second with 1 out, and that'll bring up the Cats' cleanup hitter, Justin Ahoyd.
Joe, I think with a pitcher like Madden, you're going to see the Plainfield Wildcats out on their front foot, especially early in the game. they're going to have to sit back and wait on the ball because he doesn't have the good fastball, and they're going to really be anxious to go after it, and that's what he's hoping they'll do, keep the ball on the ground. They just had some seeing eye hits here in the first inning.
Big left-handed hitter, and the ball gets away from the Lemont pitcher, Ryan Madden. So Madden's going to get a heck of a test here, and although the Lemont coach Dwayne Cota admitted that this being a non-conference game, they've got some big conference games in the Northeast coming up later this weekend, that he's going with a chance to see what Madden can do as a starter, and a big swing and a miss by big Justin Ahoyt. There's a good look at Justin. Big kid. And it seems like every time we come out to Plainfield, it looks like some of the football players of Coach Wayne DeSoto are out here with baseball uniforms on.
Now, the baseball players at Plainfield always are good-looking athletes, and we got a lot of 2- and 3-sport athletes, I would have to imagine, out here. And it helps. I think when you got a kid to come off the fine football program that they do have, it helps because they know what it is to go out there and compete and have that desire to win.
With runners at first and second and one out, the delivery by Madden, line, hard fly ball deep to left field, going way back, and it'll go off the fence. Runners had the hold, but coming around third and in a hurry is Craig Moeller. Could be a play at the plate. Moeller sliding in safely for the first run of the game, and an RBI double by Jason Ahert has put the Wildcats on the scoreboard. And of course, Ryan Madden is not too pleased about the location on that last pitch.
Not at all. He got it up a little bit, went with the pitch. Ball was tailing away from the left fielder. The runner on second had to hold to see if he could tag and go to third. Usually, when there's a fly ball to left in that situation, the runner wouldn't be thinking about that, but he could tell that the left fielder would be running away from the ball. Anyway, he had to hold up, and boy, Priest almost passed him up in the base paths, and he made a relatively close play at the plate only because he had to hold at second, but they did score and get first blood.
Well, that'll bring up Hans Kruger. That will come up after the powwow out on the hill as manager Dwayne Cota out there talking with his young pitcher. And I think Dwayne's going to take a lot of TLC out there to work with this younger kid. Although he's a fiery young coach, he knows that this is Madden's first start of the year. And you can imagine that as we look at Dwayne Cota going back to the dugout, talking about his pitcher right here, Ryan Madden, that he wants to settle the kid down and not let him get all phased up over the first inning. And we'll have an intentional walk to Kruger, so he'll get the free pass over to first base that will load things up with one out and will bring up the designated hitter for the Wildcats, Chad Schiffer. Schiffer will be batting for the pitcher, Dave Schlieben, and Schiffer is a left-handed hitter against the right-hander Madden.
I'll tell you, Joe, one thing you gotta like so far is this Madden, at least around the plate. I think a lot of times when pitchers are nervous, they have a tendency not to throw strikes, but at least he's around the plate. They didn't hit the ball all that hard the first few batters. The last one was pretty well hit, and if he can get a ground ball here, maybe he can get out of it with a double play.
That's, of course, the intention of the Lemont coach, Dwayne Cota, and we have a timeout called. The pitcher's thrown, but no pitch, and we'll see it all over again. In the on-deck circle for the Cats will be Brad Hogan as we look at Chad Schiffer. Here's the first pitch from Madden, and it's a bit high outside for a ball. The bases are loaded for the Cats, who lead 1-0 here in the top half of the first inning. And one of our favorite towns in the community, Plainfield, Illinois. Great community for the support they give. Not only the alumni, but all the people in the community give to the Plainfield Wildcat Athletic Department as well as their academics. In fact, Don Martin, the 12th year coach for the Cats, he hears a lot about what goes on at the Plainfield High School. Not only does he teach physical education there, but his wife, Pat, is the head of the English department.
Well, that's got to be a rough situation if he's got a player that's not doing, or if you have a player in a team that is kind of screwing around in the classroom, it comes home through his wife and not through the grapevine. So, but that's a great thing about Plainfield. I was talking to Arnie Blaylock prior to the game, who is a longtime coach here before Don, who now works for the College of St. Francis as a recruiter, talking about some of the players he's had over the years and that Don's had over the years. And every year in, year out, they have a very respectable team. They happen to play in a conference that takes them away from the teams we usually see. But, it's a good baseball conference, and they are always very competitive when we get to the regionals.
Well, after the base on ball forced in Priest from third base for the Indians, or the Plainfield Wildcats' second run, the Indians now trail 2-0, and Brad Hogan, the Plainfield right fielder, at the plate, and he backs off from a little bit of soft chin music up there inside corner, and it brings the count to 2-0. So to check the runners for you, over at third base is Justin Ahoyd, who had the RBI double, sliced into left field. Hans Kruger, the intentional walkover at second base, and then to the right corner of your screen is Chad Schiffer. He's on with a base on balls, and a swing and a miss by Hogan brings the count to 2 balls and 1 strike.
Joe, what a difference a couple days made. A couple days ago, these two teams played to a 1-0 game. In fact, Plainfield had 1 hit in that game, and that hit didn't even come into play during the inning they scored the run. They scored on a botched fly ball and a muffed sacrifice bunt. Here today, Plainfield's got the bags drunk already here in the first inning.
And that game against Lemont earlier in the week, which Jack talks about, having won 1-0 for the Wildcats, it was a big loss in more ways than one, because one of the top players, Matt Surges, who is an underclassman leading the team as just a sophomore in hitting, one of the leaders in hitting, and a little soft fly ball down the line will be caught by the Lemont third baseman Greg Beach for out number 2. So Beach handles that little soft liner for the second out, and that'll bring up Ed Hawes. But in that Lemont Plainfield game earlier this week, which the Cats won 1-0, as Jack mentioned, and 2 errors, only 1 hit in that game. That was by Kegel, who we will not see in this game. He's getting a rest after pitching earlier in the week in that game. A little fastball right at the chest high for called strike 1. In that game, however, Surges broke his hip while running the bases, but Coach Martin felt it was an occurring injury that had been coming on, and it was just one of those things where he began to turn the bases on his base running and pulled something in his hip, so he's going to be out for a few weeks.
That's got to be tough to break your hip while you're running. The only thing worse I've ever heard, we've got a pitcher at Lewis who played for Jaime over at Providence, and I think he broke his arm throwing a pitch, released the ball, and his arm broke. So it's about the only other crazy thing I've heard of that nature. But today's kind of a funny day. Madden, if we watch him here, doesn't throw with a lot of velocity. He's been keeping the ball up, and believe it or not, the hit might end up being effective, because you might get these guys to hit the ball up in the air, and that's what maybe you wanted to have done today, is get some pop-ups with the way the wind's blowing.
Well, Ed Hawes, the hitter, the center fielder for the Cats, has the bases loaded with 2 outs, and he hits a little chopper to the shortstop. They'll go to second for the force out, and the Plainfield Wildcats get a couple of runs here, but Lemont in all gets out of a major jam. So for the Cats in the bottom of the first, they get 2 runs on 3 hits. No errors, but they lead 3 runners aboard. And we will go to the top of the second in our high school baseball game of the week with the score. Plainfield leading Lemont 2-0. We'll be back.
Welcome back, everyone, here to Plainfield Wildcat Country, where the score after the first inning is Plainfield 2, the Lemont Indians nothing. And for the Lemont Indians, we will see their number 5 hitter, the third baseman Greg Beach, followed by the first baseman Ralph Pucala, and then Craig Stout, their left fielder. Dave Schlieben starting his second inning for Plainfield. First pitch is a strike right down the middle. Dave looks like he has the ability, today anyway, to get ahead of the hitters. And in talking to Don Martin, he's had some control problems over the year, hoping to correct those as we go along. Here's a hard shot to the third baseman. The grass holds it up a little bit. He makes a nice play, throws over to first for the first out of the inning. So Beach is retired 5-3. Second hitter is Brian Pucala, first baseman for the Lemont Indians. Things seem to be clouding up a little bit here, and there was some prediction of rain clouds to come in near the end of this game, and hope we don't get them too early today. Here's a wild one behind the batter, making him skip some rope, and sometimes a little wildness will be effective for a pitcher. Make the batter think about digging in there. Plate umpire today is Frank Abbott, longtime umpire in the Joliet area and coach for Minooka High School football. Second pitch is a little bit inside, and Schlieben falls behind Pukala 2-0 here in the second inning. There's a shot to right center. The right fielder moves over, makes a nice catch, moving away from the right field line. That was Brad Hogan in right field for Plainfield, and quickly we have the second out of the inning for the Lemont Indians. Here's the left-handed hitting Craig Stout, left fielder for Lemont. So Schlieben seems to be on his game today. Last year, Schlieben had a record of 7-1, was the ace of the Plainfield staff, but this year he seems to have struggled. He's 1-3, but I'm sure Don Martin looks for him to get better and better as the year goes along. Dave was a transfer student from Joliet Catholic after his freshman year, and has certainly got a great chance to pitch here at Plainfield, and sometimes those things work out. Sometimes they don't. I think it's a real calculated move for a student, unless it's for other reasons. But if it is for athletic reasons, I think it's a calculated move to come to a different school and hope that he can fit into their program. He certainly has done that at Plainfield High School. The first pitch was a strike. Here's the second pitch. Schlieben goes to his breaking ball, drops it in over the outside corner, and is ahead of the hitter 0-2. Day like today, you want your pitcher throwing strikes. Don't need to waste any pitches. And there's a strike three and another curveball, and Schlieben takes care of the Indians. 1-2-3 in that inning. Again, no runs, no hits, no errors, nobody left. As we move into the bottom of the second, Plainfield leads the game 2-0. For the Wildcats, we're going to see the bottom of the Plainfield order. Plainfield sent 7 batters to the plate in the first inning. Only came away with 2 runs. They left the bases loaded. But for the Wildcats, we're going to see the center fielder and number 8 hitter, Ed Hawes, followed by the catcher, Mike Grobley, and then back up to the top of the order with Craig Moeller, the left fielder. We talked earlier in the game, the Lemont Indians have been one of the finest Class A athletic schools year in, year out in all their sports, and have done pretty well in baseball. And I think it's a credit to them. They do play some AA talent. I think that's what you have to do to become a better ball club, is play talent maybe a little bit above yours, so that when you do go into your class, you can be effective. And I think Lemont has certainly done a great job of that. The first pitch is a shot to third base. He knocks it down and makes nice play, nice recovery by the third baseman from Lemont, Greg Beach. So the first man in the Plainfield order is retired 5-3. Bringing up the catcher, Mike Grobley, 9-hitter in the Plainfield order. Level of competition is so important. And again, a school like Lemont doesn't need to knock heads with the large AA schools every time out, as we see a curveball strike on the first pitch. But it is important that they get out and play some of the teams in the area, and play some of the teams with maybe a few more students in it, so when it gets down to tournament time, they're ready to go. Next pitch by Madden is in the dirt. Ball 1. Count is now 1-1 on the catcher, Mike Grobley. Madden's only a sophomore. Seems to be throwing some sort of a knuckleball or some flutter pitch up there, and that was that pitch, and it was a little high, and the umpire called it a ball. We're at 2-1. There's Madden's fastball, and that flutter ball pitch makes his fastball look a little bit faster. He got it down low, and count is now 2-2 on Mike Robley, the catcher. There's a high pop-up over on the first base side. It's drifting, and it's out of play over here behind the first base dugout. Lemont's outfielders seem to be playing quite a bit deep, especially for the 9-hitter, and with the wind blowing as it is, you would think that they would shorten up a little bit today, and the dimensions here are perfect for high school baseball. 325 down the lines, 350. I feel 350 to 360 in center field is a good dimension for a high school baseball game. Another foul ball off to the right-hand side. Joe and I were talking earlier about the conditions of this field, and with the lack of rain we've had over the last year or so, it's amazing how green the grass is out here. Wish I could do the same thing at home with my lawn. There's Madden coming in with a fastball, and we brings the count to full, and to the 9-hitter here. He doesn't want to put this guy on. Inside for ball 4. I'd like to make a correction. That was Craig Moeller, the leadoff man. We must have missed somebody in here. Mike Robley led the inning off with a ground out, 5-3. And this brings up the second baseman for Plainfield, Sean Carter, left-handed hitter, fine hitter for the Plainfield Wildcats. First pitch is that slow, tantalizing breaking ball that Madden throws for a strike. Strike one on the hitter. I'll tell you, very often a pitcher like this will tie up the good hitters from a ball club, get them out on their front foot, as we saw the first time that Sean Carter batted. He grounded one weakly to second baseman only because he was way out in front. He squares the bunt. Here's the bunt down the first base side, and it turns into a sacrifice bunt. And we have a throw to second, a close play, but he's back in there. So Carter puts a sacrifice bunt down, moving the runner to second, and he is out, pitcher to first. And that's the second out of the inning, and that brings up the shortstop, Chris Priest. Don Martin playing for 1 run here with a 2-run lead, uses his number 2 man to move the runner to second base for his outstanding RBI man, Chris Priest, and hoping that he can get one more up in the scoreboard and take him out of a bunt situation in the next inning. First pitch is a very slow curveball, good location on the outside corner, and Chris, the aggressive swinger that he is, swings at it for strike 1. Second pitch is up a little high, ball, 1-1. That pitch doesn't look like a good pitch. It comes up there like a balloon, but it's so tantalizingly slow that if you're not waiting on the ball, a lot of hitters have trouble with that. I saw that on the White Sox game last night with the Boston Red Sox. White Sox reliever Jones got away with a high curveball to Dwayne Evans in a key situation. Here's a ground ball to first, knocked down by the first baseman, but he's not able to handle it for the out. We'll have to score that an error on the first baseman, Ralph Pucala, putting the Indians in a tough situation, first and third here in the second inning, down 2-0, with the Wildcats' first baseman, Big Justin Ahoy, coming to the plate, who last time stroked an RBI double down the left field line, going with the pitch and putting the Wildcats out on top. So with a first and third situation, let's see how the sophomore pitcher can handle this. Another long fly ball to left, bending away from the outfielder, and he makes a running catch. That ball turned the left fielder around, and that happens a lot to outfielders where the ball's hit directly at you. You may initially take a couple steps in the wrong direction and have to come back and make that play, and that's something that can be practiced even inside with some footwork, and he did a nice job to retire the Wildcats without any runs in that inning, stranding runners at first and third. So in that inning for the Wildcats, we have no runs and no hits. We had 1 error and 2 men left. So after 2 innings here at the Plainfield High School baseball field, the score is the Plainfield Wildcats 2, the Lemont Indians nothing. And so as we go into the 3rd inning here, Coach Cota from Lemont gives some encouragement to his charges in the first base dugout. We get into this situation in the game, we want to make sure that the kids keep their head up. All they need to get is a couple runners and make some things happen. They haven't been able to do that so far. And for the bottom of Coach Cota's lineup, the leadoff hitter is the catcher, Matt Malik, who will be followed by the right fielder, Joel Suchecki, and then we go to the top of the order with Sean O'Shaughnessy, the center fielder. First pitch is drilled to right field. He kind of stuck out his bat, and the right fielder has to move a few steps to his left and makes the catch. Matt Malik was a little bit out in front, maybe a little too anxious. And again, in these kind of situations here where you're down a couple runs, if you're not going to get a good swing at the ball, you're better off taking it for a strike and going from there. If he wasn't looking for that particular pitch, lay off that pitch and see what else Mr. Schlieben has to offer. So with 1 out in the top of the 3rd inning, the 9-hitter, Joel Suchecki, comes up for the Lemont Indians. Suchecki's a left-handed hitter. Well, he threw that ball right by him. He gets ahead of the hitter, and that's what he hasn't done earlier in the year, according to Coach Martin. He hadn't been coming out and throwing strikes, and I'm sure he did that last year. Anybody with a 7-1 record and the good ERA that Dave Schlieben had last year. But he has run into some bad luck, and he's caused some bad luck for himself by having some problems on the mound defensively. There's a pitch fouled off to the back behind the screen, and we have 2 strikes on the hitter, and Schlieben continues to get ahead of these Lemont Indians. We used to tell our pitchers that 75% of the games that are lost by errors made by the pitcher. There's a swing and a foul ball, a double hit. Once the ball hits the bat the second time while the batter is in the box, it's a foul ball, and the umpire jumped on that and called it right away. But we used to tell our pitchers, they said, about 75% of games are lost because of defense on the pitcher. I don't know if that's exactly true, but it's a good thing to try to tell your pitchers on, because if nothing else, you want them not to put their own selves in the hole. Enough other bad things can happen. There's a fastball and really good change of speeds on Schlieben's part as he strikes out the 9-hitter in the Indian order. And that's the key to pitching, is being able to change speeds. I think too often pitchers come out and think they can just pump that fastball up there at the same speed and not worry about getting their breaking ball over or changing speeds regardless of what hitter it is in the lineup. This brings up Sean O'Shaughnessy, center fielder for Lemont, who going into this game was hitting .393. As he pulls out and swings it at that pitch and brings the count to 1-1. Schlieben's a quick worker, and that's the kind of thing you like to see if you're a defensive player behind him. There's a drive, high fly ball in the center field. The center fielder camps under it and makes the easy catch for out number 3. So for the Lemont Indians in the 3rd inning, 3 up, 3 down. Schlieben has retired 8 in a row. No runs, no hits, no errors, and nobody left. As we moved into the bottom of the 3rd inning, and the score is the Plainfield Wildcats 2, the Lemont Indians nothing. Welcome back, everyone. This is Jack Szymanski with the high school game of the week, featuring the Plainfield Wildcats at their home field versus the Lemont Indians, two non-conference foes here today. Joe Passion will be back with us in a short time, as he had to go out on assignment and do a report via the telephone, and he's up in the school building making that report. He should be back any inning, but you'll have to put up with me as we move here into the third inning, the bottom of the third. The leadoff hitter for the Plainfield Wildcats is their third baseman, Hans Kruger. Hans reached last time on an infield hit, hits the second pitch, a line drive to left field. Nobody's going to catch up with that one as he drills a ball over the shortstop's head for a base hit to lead off the third inning, which brings to bat the DH, Chad Schiffer, who is hitting for the pitcher, Dave Schlieben, today. So last inning, we saw Don Martin sacrifice bunt with one out as he had a runner to first. Let's see what he does in this situation. First pitch is a strike, and Madden gets ahead. Ryan Madden, with the type of pitcher he is, could be a pretty easy guy to steal on, only because his velocity isn't the kind of ball that the catcher's going to get a good shot at that runner. So if Kruger has any speed, and there he goes on a hit and run, and Schiffer fouls it off and falls behind now 0-2. But I would think that Don Martin may look with his better runners to get him moving. Catcher's throwing into the wind a little bit today, which always makes it more difficult. And with Madden, with the more or less breaking ball pitcher that he is, they could have a chance to get him down. And I think this is something that has to be done in high school baseball, is more of a look to stealing than sacrifice bunting. Next pitch is low and inside, ball 1-2. Coach Don Martin flashing signs down there at third base, and the batter Chad Schiffer looking him over carefully. There goes the runner. Line shot to the right center. With the runner moving, he's going to make it to third easily and maybe even have a chance to score. Don Martin sending him around, and he'll score easily as Chad Schiffer cranks an RBI double in the right center, increasing Plainfield's lead to 3-0 over the Indians from Lemont. That was a real well hit ball. He waited in that ball well with two strikes, with the runner going, hit the ball in the perfect spot of the ballpark to score that runner all the way from first base. Now with the runner at second, this brings up the right fielder, Brad Hogan, who lined out to the third baseman on kind of a half liner, half pop-up with the bases loaded last inning. Here's a blooper down the right field line. It drops in right on the line, and Hogan pulls into second base with the second consecutive double for the Wildcats. Schiffer was unable to score because he had to hold up to see if the right fielder, Joel Suchecki, was going to be able to make that catch, and therefore was only able to make it to third. But with nobody out here in the third inning, Coach Dwayne Cota goes to the mound and looks like he's going to make a switch here. For the Indians, we see a left-hander coming to the mound. I'll have to pick it up from the scorekeeper as she comes by next time. I'm not sure who this pitcher is. But for Ryan Madden, his first varsity start, kind of a rocky show here in the third inning. Ryan gave up a total of 3 runs, but he will be responsible for the runners at first and second, and is sent to the showers with consecutive doubles by Chad Schiffer and Brad Hogan. Nobody out here in the third inning. Ooh, this is a tough one. We got a left-handed pitch. Good thing I'm a good Polak because this is Jeff Wojciechowski. Jeff Wojciechowski, number 38, comes into a second and third no-out jam for the Lemont Indians. And Coach Cota is hoping that by changing in the middle of the inning and going to a left-hander, maybe he'll see a little better luck here as the Wildcats have jumped out quickly to a 3-run lead in the first 3 innings, unlike they did the other day when they were able to peck away and win only 1-0 over the Indians. And the Lemont Indians have brought their infield in, and they're going to try to choke off this run and snuff off any larger lead. And this is a big thing in high school or any kind of baseball. First pitch is a ball inside, but this is a big thing in any kind of baseball, is to stay out of the big inning if you're on defense, and vice versa. Try to play for that big inning. That's what baseball's all about. You have to try to play, especially early in the game, for the big inning. For the Wildcats, with runners at second and third, we see Ed Hawes, the center fielder. Wojciechowski throws out of a stretch position, which also helps hold that runner at third, and is able to come in with another strike, and the count runs to 1-2. All the infielders, if the ball is hit directly at them and they come up with it cleanly, will look to make the throw to the plate. Oh, squeeze bunt, kind of a safety squeeze. The runner waited to make his move, and the throw is thrown down the right field line by the pitcher, Jeff Wojciechowski. Don Martin wanted his runner to try to come all the way to third. He holds at second, 2-run score on a sacrifice, a suicide sacrifice squeeze with runners at second and third, and things worked out very well for the Wildcats there as Wojciechowski hopped off the mound, got to the ball, had no chance to get the runner at the plate. Chad Schiffer, who held and waited to see if the ball got down, it did. He scored easily. The play went to first. The ball was thrown down the right field line, allowing Brad Hogan to score from second. And now that brings the Plainfield lead to 5-0. Still nobody out here in the third inning with a runner at second and Mike Grobley, the catcher, at the plate. Again, pitcher's defense comes into play. We talked about the Wildcats' problems this year with pitcher's defense. The Indians had their problems themselves and prolonged this inning, this long inning that the Wildcats have been able to put together. It is a tough thing now. If you could have just got an out at first base, he's looking at 1 out and a runner at third, and instead, nobody out. 5-0 lead in the third inning. There's a pop-up in the infield. Second baseman moves over. Brian Phelan makes a nice play out in the right field grass for out number 1. So with 1 out, we go to the top of the order. Craig Moeller, who led off the game with a base hit and walked in the second inning. So he's 1 for 1 on the day, on base twice, and of course that's what you're looking for out of your leadoff man. Here's a curveball from Wojciechowski for a ball 1 down low. Another ball two, and Wojciechowski doesn't seem to be picking up his catcher early enough. Something that a lot of pitchers do with a runner on second, have a tendency to keep their attention on the runner and not pick up the catcher. And I think that's a mistake that pitchers make, and that's why it's so hard to pitch with runners on base. And you want your pitchers throwing out of a stretch more often than out of the windup because they're going to be in the situation. But anyway, he pumps up a strike, and the count goes to 2-1. There's a line drive to right field. The right fielder holds his ground, makes a nice catch. Suchecki throws the ball in, and that was not an easy play. So a line out to right field for Craig Moeller. Hit that ball well, and as is always said, that ball hit right at the outfielder is the toughest ball to handle, but he did a good job, and the reason he did a good job is he held his ground initially and didn't react immediately one way or the other. Wait to see where the ball is going to go, kind of look under it a little bit, and then moved over and made the catch. So with 2 outs and a runner still in scoring position, we now see Sean Carter. Sean grounded out in the first inning, second baseman to first, and then laid down a nice sacrifice bunt the last time, so he's 0 for 1 on the day. Nice fastball up high for Wojciechowski, and he showed some heat on that one. It's too bad that he mishandled that bunt, because coming in with second and third and nobody out, he would have done well just to get out of there with 1 run, and now he's faced with 2 runs scored on that play, and he's trying to hold that runner at second. Coach Martin looks for Sean Carter to be one of the top hitters in the area this year. Here's a ground ball to first base, gets by the first baseman. Right fielder's going to try to make a play at the plate, but he scores easily. So an RBI single for Sean Carter, and that's the big 2-out hit that we're always looking for as coaches. That extra run will really mean a lot as we go down in the end of the game, and that's the 3rd run of the inning for the Wildcats. I'm sorry, the 4th run of the inning, bringing the score to 6-0 Plainfield. Carter takes off on the first pitch. Catcher gets rid of it, but in his hurry to get the ball down there, is not able to get it all the way to the second baseman, and a stolen base for Sean Carter. Plainfield is in the aggressive position now, where they can look to run and do a lot of things that I know Don Martin likes to do. Second pitch is a ball inside, and he drops down behind the great hitting Chris Priest, 2-0. Chris has been an outstanding varsity baseball player here in the Joliet area for now his 3rd year, and he takes a wicked cut at that pitch over the outside corner for strike 1. Chris is, as we said, it's amazing how anybody could come up as a freshman and play baseball on the varsity level. Here's a curveball inside. Runner's trying to steal third and beats the throw. Catcher did a nice job of avoiding the batter, made a good throw, but again, as usual, that base was stolen on the pitcher. Lefties are much more susceptible to the steal of third because their back is actually to the runner. 3-1 to Priest, high for ball 4, and Priest walks, putting runners at first and third, and the Wildcats have now batted around in this inning, scoring 4 runs, and they still have runners at first and third. And Justin Ahoyt, who finished off inning number 2 for the Wildcats with a fly out to left field, comes to the plate. Priest takes off on the first pitch and easily steals second standing up as the catcher simply tries to fake a throw and try to draw the runner off of third. No attempt at all to getting the runner at second base. And with a left-handed pitcher, a lot of times you'll just run immediately, because even if the pitcher makes the pickoff to first, it's a tough play for the first baseman to handle. Ahoy takes a curveball and now is even with the pitcher 1-1. In his first 2 at-bats, Ahoyd has shown that he can hit the ball to left field, as he hit an RBI double the first time up and a long fly out to the left fielder the second time. And here's a rope right up the middle to center field. The center fielder cuts it off. He'll have no chance to get either runner. And the Plainfield Wildcats are starting to put this game away early with a 2 RBI single by Justin Ahoyd. Bringing the score to the Wildcats 8, the Indians nothing, and Coach Coda's out to talk to his pitcher, who, after throwing a bunt wild down the first base line, has been unable to solve the Wildcats' meat of their order, as Sean Carter and Justin Ahoyd have touched him for big hits with 2 outs. The Wildcats, as we have said, have batted around this inning, and leading off this inning a long time ago was the third baseman, Hans Kruger, who led us off with a base hit and is now stepping to the plate with runner at first base. Of course, you know, in high school baseball, we play the 10-run rule, and that 10 runs comes into effect after 4.5 innings for the home team. So the Indians are staring at a 10-0 whitewash unless they get things turned around here quickly. Jeff Wojciechowski on the mound leads off Hans Kruger with a strike. Hans is, I believe he's 2 for 2 on the day with an infield single. There's a pitch and a pop-up to the second baseman. This should end the inning. And the second baseman, Brian Phelan, catches it for out number 3. So, for the Wildcats, in a more than batting around inning, score 6 runs on 5 hits. 1 very costly error, and 1 man left. And so at the end of our first 3 innings on our game of the week here on a fairly nice intermittent sunny day here in Plainfield, is the Plainfield Wildcats 8 runs. The Lemont Indians have been shut out to this point, 8-0 after 3 innings. Okay. Game of the week. This is Jack Szymanski subbing in for Joe Passion, who will be back, is on another assignment at this time, but will be back unless this game turns out to be a short one, as we are in the 3rd inning with the Plainfield Wildcats ahead at this time 8-0 over the Lemont Indians. And the first hitter for the Lemont Indians, Tim Markley, their DH, bounces out to short as Chris Peace throws to Justin Ahoyd for the first out of the inning, and Dave Schlieben is mowing these Indians down 1-2-3. First pitch to the number 2 hitter, the second baseman, Brian Phelan. Brian Phelan is a name in my neck of the woods, as my assistant coach with my Pinto team, Jack Phelan, has a son named Brian Phelan, who's going to be an outstanding athlete at St. Joe's Park this year, as well as at Joliet Catholic in the future. But Brian Phelan bounces out to the second baseman for the second out of the inning. And at this particular point, Dave Schlieben has retired 10 men in a row. The only base runner to reach for the Indians today was the leadoff, the second hitter in their order, Tim Markley, who reached on an error by the shortstop in the first inning. So Dave Schlieben certainly has turned his season around after a 1-3 start and is pitching an outstanding ball game. The number 4 hitter in the Lemont lineup, Rich Sizik, steps to the plate. Rich is the Lamont's leading hitter going into the game. He struck out the first time. He's a nice-looking athlete. Going into the game was hitting 510. Oh, and there's the first hit for the Indians as he drills the ball down the left field line. Left fielder for Plainfield comes up, makes a strong throw, and just barely misses getting the run. That was a heck of a throw by the left fielder, Craig Moeller, for the Wildcats. But Rich Sizik showed some wheels as he did not hesitate and motored it around second base for a double, and that's the first hit for the Lemont Indians. And as we welcome Joe Passion back here with us, Joe, I kept my tongue bitten and didn't say anything about a no-hitter, but it didn't do any good because Schlieben now has lost his chance for popularity as Rich Sizik drills a double down the left field line, and I guess that was to be expected from a 500 hitter.
Well, if anyone's going to do it, Rich would. He was the leading hitter on this ball club, a tremendous football athlete, MVP of this team last year, and so only fitting that the best hitter on the Lemont Indians gets to Dave Schlieben on a game that no one else could.
You're right, Joe, and that's a little life for the Lemont Indians after a long 6-run inning for the Wildcats in their half of the third inning, as we are now in the top of the fourth. 6 runs last inning on 5 hits and a very costly error, Joe, by the pitcher. We've talked about pitcher's errors today for the Plainfield side, and the Lemont Indians relief pitcher Jeff Wojciechowski with a big error that really opened the door for the Wildcats and put them in the driver's seat. The hitter for the Indians now is Greg Beats, the third baseman, who bounced out third to first his first time up. Hits another ball to the third baseman. This one ricochets off his shin, and with great hustle, Chris Priest picks the ball up way down the left field line. That is amazing where he was at to get that ball. That'll show you the kind of attitude and character that Chris Priest has to even make that play at the plate. So we'll have to rule that an error, even though it's a relatively hard hit ball. An error on the third baseman, Hans Kruger, as the runner moves into second base, and now the score is the Wildcats 8 and the Indians 1.
Well, a great play, as you mentioned, by Priest, just backing him up, and those are the fundamentals I know that you as a coach always try to instill in your kids. The catcher running down the first base line, backing up the throws from the left side of the infield, and the left side of the infield infielders backing up plays like that. A good defensive maneuver by Priest that held up the runner at second.
Joe, and that's amazing. It's amazing that he would even make that kind of effort, because a lot of times on a play like that, you wouldn't think that you'd have to go after that ball, but he got over there and made it a close play at the plate, and with the good arm that he has, I thought he might have a shot at him, but he didn't. Foul ball down the left field side by Ralph Pucala, the first baseman. Ralph flew out to right field on his first time up in the second inning. Temperature seems to be dropping a little bit, but still a beautiful day out here.
Well, Pakula is another one of the strong hitters in the Lemont lineup at 450 on the year. So this is another kid that maybe as they're getting, if possible, to Schlieben now, this is the time for Pakula also to break out of his slump, at least the one he's shown here in the 2 previous at-bats. Check that, the 1 previous at-bat, and that he flying out to the right fielder.
Joe, Schlieben has shown very good control to this point. As you know, as you talked to Don Martin, that was a problem earlier. Here's a bloop in the center field, but the center fielder playing shallow with this wind. Ed Hawes comes in and makes the catch for the final out of the 4th inning. And for the Indians, they finally get on the board with 1 run on 1 hit, 1 error. It was an unearned run, and 1 man left. And so, in the middle of the 4th, as the Wildcats move in to take their bats, we see the score is the Plainfield Wildcats 8, the Lemont Indians 1. I turn the play-by-play over to my good friend Joe Passion.
Well, thanks for filling in so well and so admirably, Jack Szymanski, as I had to attend to radio business on the phone in the Plainfield High School building, but I knew that the telecast would be in good hands when you're in the hands of Szymanski. Why don't I just welcome a lot of our Plainfield viewers. You know, a lot of the Plainfield area was just wired for cable television this past year, so we know we have a lot of new viewers in the Will County area of Plainfield and the surrounding Plainfield community. So glad to have you with us on our Channel 15 High School Baseball Game of the Week. Next week we'll be in Romeoville. We'll have our first look at Brian James' Romeoville Spartans against the Lockport Porters of Coach Clyde Odell. And Clyde Odell's Porters, who have been ranked in the Chicagoland area's top 20 all year long, have pitcher Bob Stelling back from an early season injury, so they are on a roll right now. That should be a heck of a Sicko West Conference battle. That's next week in our high school game of the week, Lockport at Romeoville. Here, though, as we go into the bottom half of the fourth inning, the Plainfield Wildcats will lead off with their designated hitter, Chad Schiffer, who walked in the first and doubled in a run in the third inning. That big 6-run third inning by the Plainfield Wildcats, who lead 8-1 here. And Schiffer comes right up with another single, and he is 2 for 2 now as he hits a single in between the hole on the right side of the infield. So Chad Schiffer with a single to go along with that double. There's a good look at Chad. He's on first base to open up the fourth, and that will bring up the right fielder for the Plainfield Wildcats, Brad Hogan.
Chad Schiffer is a switch hitter as he comes up against the lefty and turns around and hits right-handed. And I remember Chad from our fall baseball league a couple years that Jaime and I ran, and boy, he's made himself into a pretty good hitter. He's having a good day today anyway.
Hogan with a double and an RBI his last time up. Check that, just a double his last time up, and he did have an RBI, so he hits one down the line. It will be fair. A fair ball, and rounding second and going for third is Chad Schiffer. There could be a play. It throws away from the bag, and runners are safe at second and third. Another double for Brad Hogan, and the Cats have runners in scoring position with first base open. There's a good look at Brad Hogan with that double, and that'll bring up the center fielder, Ed Hawes, who had the nice catch on that last out of the inning. As we look at number 14, Chad Schiffer over there at third base, Coach Don Martin in the third base coach's box, and there are the runners that you see in our view from the third base dugout. And with the hitter, Ed Hawes, coming to the plate, he had a sacrifice and then advanced on an error, and so they'll have a chance here to maybe pile up some more. The head coach of the Lemont Indians, Dwayne Cota, coming out to talk with home plate umpire Bud Abbott about his feeling that last hit ball might have been foul, but we saw it just skip over the inside of the bag.
Joe, that's got to be the toughest call, or one of the toughest calls for the umpire in the high school level with a two-man crew. He's trying to keep his head down and cover that ball and strike, and then has to look up and a shot hit down the left field line. And, you know, there's not much you can argue about there because he's got to make a split decision. He did that. And I'll tell you what, Joe, these Wildcats have come out with their hitting shoes on today. I know Don Martin has talked about how, you know, his team has not really brought the bats out too much this year, but they're sure hitting the ball today for to get to the point where they are here with second and third with an 8-1 lead, and every inning we seem to be seeing Wildcats on the bases.
Well, Don went as so far to say prior to the game when he was discussing his ball club with us, Jack, as a high pop-up out of play to the right side, was that this club this year, the 1989 version of the varsity boys baseball team at Plainfield, might be his weakest hitting team in 8 or 9 years.
You know what happened? The kids heard him say that probably.
Must be it. But I'll tell you, they've come out here against Ryan Madden in his first start for the Lemont Indians on the hill, although 2-0 in relief appearances. Little shot that will slice down the right field line, and it will drift foul. And so Madden is ahead of the hitter 0-2.
I'll tell you, Joe, it wouldn't be hard to be the worst hitting team in Plainfield history because they've had good baseball here year in and year out. I was talking to Arnie Blaylock prior to the game and to Don and asked him, hey, give me some names of the great Plainfield players, and there have been some good players. One guy comes to mind that you wouldn't know because you maybe weren't around, but Dave Cassetto, who ended up playing some professional ball and was just an outstanding pitcher here back in the days of the Bill Gullicksons in those mid-'70s. Boy, they used to lock up in some great matchups, and you know, Arnie did a great job, and Don has done a great job of schooling these guys on the fundamentals of the game.
A good look from our center field camera in the pulled-in infield. They'll have the runner at first base. The runners at second and third have to hold, and that's one away as Ed Hawes grounds out to the pulled-in infield. Nice play by the shortstop, Rich Zizik, who had that big double and scored the only Lemont engine run back in the top half of the fourth inning.
Joe, you're right. That was a good play with the pulled-in infield. Zizik showed his good athletic ability by picking that ball up, checking the runner at third, and getting the out at first.
So here's Mike Grobley, the catcher, and he looks at a ball on the high outside corner of the plate. The Plainfield Wildcats, who come in this game at 6-9 overall, are tied for first in the Little 7 Conference, a conference that they captured last year with a 14-4 mark. They're 4-2 in conference play. This, of course, being a non-conference game for both these clubs. The Lemont Indians, ironically, are tied for first in their conference, in the Northeast Conference, and they're tied for first with Elmwood Park, both with identical 4-2 records, although you got to give the nod there to Lemont. They beat Elmwood Park earlier this season.
Well, you know, Joe, I think both of these schools play in conferences. There's a pop-up.
Shortstop Zizik will go back. He'll stay in the infield dirt and will capture it for out number 2. So far, Ryan Madden, who started off in trouble in this inning, is beginning to work out of his jam, and maybe this is where the reliever in him is coming out. He was a middle reliever most of the season until he got his first start here today, or check that, the relief pitcher here today for the Lemont Indians on the hill.
Jeff
Wojciechowski, who had relief for Madden, rather, and this is where the relief staff is coming into play here for Lemont. That's one thing that Coach Cota had mentioned, that he likes his relief staff, but they're thin, inexperienced starters.
Well, they would have been okay. It was second and third, nobody out, and they went to a squeeze bunt. Plainfield went to a squeeze bunt. The run was going to score, no question, and Wojciechowski took the ball and threw it down the right field line.
Shot up the middle by Craig Moeller. 2 runs will score for the Plainfield Wildcats. A wild throw at home plate, and the runner will advance to second base. And so Moeller, with a 2-run single here in the bottom of the fourth, brings both runners, Schiffer and Hogan, home, and it's now a 10-1 ball game in favor of the Cats.
Completing what we were saying, an error down the right field line that opened the floodgates, and now, you know, Plainfield's gotten to get up there and hit with good confidence. They're hitting the ball, and if you let any kind of a good team off the hook like that, they're going to take advantage of it, and that's what Plainfield has done.
Well, here's Sean Carter, left-hand hitter out of Indian Trail Junior High, and he hits one to the second baseman on the ground. Will be an easy 4-3 put out it is, and the Cats are out of the inning. But in the inning for Plainfield, in the bottom of the fourth, they get 2 runs on 2 hits, a single and a double by Schiffer and Hogan. Both score on the third hit of the inning by Craig Moeller, so 3 hits in the inning, no errors, and a man left aboard. And we go to the top half of the 5th inning of play with the 7, 8, and 9 hitters coming up for the Lemont Indians, and the Plainfield Cats leading it 10-1. A couple other things that we can always talk about when we talk about the Lemont Indians. You know, as we talked earlier about John Jones, the veteran athletic director, head basketball coach over at Lemont, who has done a tremendous job. And, you know, you think about this Lemont Indian team, which is 10-12 coming into this game, but boy, you could sit here and talk all day long about the Lemont Lady Indians softball team this year, ranked number 1 in the Chicagoland area in softball in Class A. And they have a pitcher, Erin Ryder, very lovely young lady who I had on my Inside Local Sports show last year on Channel 15. And speaking of lovely young ladies, Rochelle Levine, a sophomore, the head statistician for Lemont. You see in our picture over here, getting her stats book up to date for the Lemont Indians. Always great to have volunteers out, especially getting the girls involved with the boys' sports. Lemont and Plainfield both having students that come out here and help the coaches and the players out. But back to Erin Ryder, she has thrown 6 no-hitters this year alone, and has had an ERA of 0.00 up until last week when she gave up a run in relief.
I heard she got beat the other, at least from what I was saying, maybe I'm wrong, but I heard she got beat the other day, and that was amazing. And that's unbelievable how when somebody gets beat, everybody looks and says there must be something wrong. She must be completely outstanding. And I know that's a different kind of game, that fast pitch softball, but to pitch 6 no-hitters in one game at any level is really doing something amazing.
Well, no question about that, Jack. And we open up the bottom of the 5th, and Craig Stout will open up the inning for the Lemont Indians. Stout hitting .250 with 4 RBIs. Is 0 for 1 today. Is struck out in his only previous plate appearance. And in the dirt from Dave Schlieben. Schlieben is a senior, big kid at 6'1", 190. There you see him out in the mound, out of Indian Trail. Also an excellent football player and does very well in class as well. Last year he was an all-conference, all-area a junior in baseball. He gives up the base on balls here to Stout, and so Lemont opens up the top of the 5th with a runner aboard, and that will bring up Matt Malik, the catcher, hitting at a .230 clip, and he certainly would like to work on Schlieben here, who got worked on last inning for the only hit and the only run that has been given up on him all afternoon.
Joe, the key with Schlieben today is he's gotten ahead of the hitters. Don Martin was telling us that he's had control problems. He hasn't shown that today. He's shown some wild pitches, but sometimes those could be effective if you're around the plate all the rest of the time, and he's done that. And again, with the lead, he hasn't tried to do anything fancy. He's getting right after the hitters. He's working very quickly. He's throwing the ball over the plate, getting ahead, and things have really worked out well for him today.
As we look at Malik, who flew out to right field his first time up, off the handle of the bat to the shortstop. Priest can't get a handle on it. Will try and get the runner at first, and almost does, but everybody is safe. Give Priest an E for effort. He lost the opportunity to get the man at second base, so he went to first, and he does get the hitter out at first base. A great arm over there at shortstop by the Plainfield shortstop Chris Priest, and out at first is Malik with a 6-3 putout. Advancing over the second, though, will be Stout, and with 1 away, the number 9 hitter in Dwayne Cota's order, Joel Suchecki, the right fielder, will step up to the plate. Joel struck out his last time at bat.
Joe, it's not very often that a shortstop can knock the ball down and still get the runner at first, but Chris plays relatively shallow as shortstops go, and he was playing shallow that time, knocked the ball down, and with his strong arm was able to just beat the runner at first base. I know you got tricked up there. The reason is I think the umpire on the bases, had his hands up as if he was going to make the safe call, but he definitely waited and then made the out call, and that's what you have to do as an umpire. You have to take a long look at those close plays and then make the call and then sell your call, and he did a good job of that.
Well, it's time for a Plainfield powwow on the mound, and Don Martin will come back off the mound after having a little discussion with his pitcher, Dave Schlieben. Schlieben threw a no-hitter when he was in 8th grade, so he was working on one here today through 3 2/3 innings before Cizek reached him for a double, later scoring the only Lemont run thus far in this game. We're in the top of the 5th, 1 out. Stout on second base for the Indians, and Dave Schlieben on the mound. Wants to be a doctor when he gets out of college. Has plans on going to Augustana College up there in the Quad Cities. Tremendous university institution. The delivery and the curveball comes in there and drops right over the plate for a called strike.
Well, he comes right back with a curveball after a talk from Coach Martin, and possibly a talk that, hey, you got to pitch your game. Don't just come out there and throw the ball. You got to pitch your game.
Little soft liner to the second baseman and a little bobble, but they'll still get the runner. Sean Carter, like Chris Priest on the previous ground ball, had some trouble handling it off the infield grass, but again, he stayed with the ball all the way, got the runner for out number 2 on the 4-3 putout. So Suchecki out at first, and with 2 away, the runner advancing over to third base is Stout, and there's a look at the second baseman, Sean Carter, with the nice defensive play, and that'll bring up Sean O'Shaughnessy, who is 0 for 2, grounded out to the first baseman and flew out to the center fielder to end the 3rd.
Joe, this young man should make our all-name team. Sean O'Shaughnessy, very redundant type of name.
Fine Irish lad that he is. The delivery to Sean, high pop-up, right side will fade out of play, and we'll come back here. Back to the man on the mound. What a great outing Dave Schlieben has had. He has been struggling the early part of the year, getting control on his fastball and curveball, was even experimenting with that split-fingered forkball, but has not been able to get the control on it as a Huey helicopter overhead moves along. Out here, the National Guard Armory nearby, a little chopper past the mound. Priest will charge. Nice play, the strong arm throw, and they get the 6-3 putout and the end of the inning. So what seemed like a little bit of trouble for Schliemann as he walked the leadoff hitter, but the infield does the job on 2 groundouts to short and 1 to second for the Indians in the 5th. No runs, no hits, no errors, and a man left on. We go to the bottom of the 5th with the score at Plainfield. The Wildcats leading the visiting Indians 10-1. Coming up here in the 5th for Plainfield will be Chris Priest, Justin Ahort, and Hans Kruger, the number 3, 4, and 5 hitters. So we'll see the meat of that Plainfield order that will come up here. And it's interesting that when we talked earlier about how the Plainfield Wildcats head coach Don Martin, who has been around for a number of years, and when Don says something, you know, he must be talking some sense, as we see Eric Geisler working out in the bullpen, who may give a little bit of help to Schliemann if he begins to tire out there in the mind of Don Martin. There's another look at Geisler, Eric Geisler, just a junior, 6-foot right-hander, working out, number 17, making sure that cap looks good. I think he knows the TV camera over there is on him.
Joe, you know, one thing we ought to point out right here is that Lemont is facing, staring the 10-run rule in the face here with a 10-1 lead. All Plainfield has to do is put one on the board here and the game's over, so they're really going to have to work here to keep the game going, and that's all you're worried about right now. Keep it going. You never know what can happen. If they do bring another pitcher in, he may not be as effective, and you never know what can happen here in the last couple innings.
Well, there's a good look at Chris Priest, who will lead it off here in the top of the 5th. Chris has been up 3 times already. Officially on the board is 1 for 2, singled and scored in the 1st, and flied out in the 2nd, walked and scored in the 3rd. It's a long fly ball to deep center field, and say goodbye in the hands of the center fielder. It looked like for a moment it was gone, but the center fielder, Sean O'Shaughnessy, makes a great running stab of a ball hit against this 18-mile-an-hour wind. You can imagine that ball would probably have dropped into athletic director's Chuck Harris's office by now if the wind had been blowing the other way.
Boy, he looked good on that swing. Kept the head down, smacked it to center field, and that was sort of an amazing catch out there in center field, because he caught the ball with his back to the plate, but he had his glove turned kind of the opposite way, not a la Willie Mays on his Vic Wertz catch, but the other way. I think he was kind of surprised. Sean was kind of surprised that he even came up with that ball out there.
That was a heck of a catch. Ground ball down the line. This ball will be foul. The ball was touched in foul territory. Dave Riley is the pinch hitter in place of Justin Ahort.
Riley's another big guy, 6'2", 195. Seems like the backup first baseman for Plainfield as he hits for the strong and large Ahort, who hit some long drives here today.
Well, he's about the 2nd largest fella on the Cats team, so only fitting that if someone's going to replace the shadow of Justin Ahort, it might as well be this young man here. Really can put up a big load up there, Riley.
I'll tell you what, a couple years ago, Plainfield had a team that just hit a ton of home runs. I think you were still around. You were around during those days.
3 years ago.
Unbelievable. They must have had 45, 50 home runs as a team. And they had, every kid in their team was this size. It was. I remember going to scout them because I believe we played them in the first game of the playoffs that year. And they had some big horses on that team. I don't know what they feed them out here.
Well, that goes back to the point you made earlier when we re-quoted Don Martin as saying this is one of the weakest hitting teams they've had in 8 and 9 years, as Riley strikes out in his first at-bat for out number 2 in the bottom of the 5th. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, because these have been the bruise bombers of Will County over the last decade under Don Martin. And when you say a weak team hitting compared to other Plainfield teams, that's not necessarily a rip.
Well, you know, this is a pretty decent sized field. I was mentioning when you were gone.
Hard shot by Kruger right up the middle for a base hit. Hans Kruger with his 3rd base hit of the afternoon, right smack up the gut for his 3rd single. One has been an infield single. He also popped out to the 2nd baseman, so Kruger now is 3 for 4 on the day, and that'll bring up Chad Schiffer. Schiffer has been red hot. He's had a single and a double as well as walking, so he's been on base all 3 previous at-bats. 2 outs here in the bottom of the 5th. A swing and a miss by Schiffer.
I'll tell you, Joe, talking about this field, we talked about it earlier, and the 325 down the line is a perfect dimension, I think, for a high school field, or any field, really. 350 to center isn't all that bad. It could be a little bit deeper, but I wonder about the power alleys. But all I heard that year is about how Plainfield's field is short, and that's why they had all the home runs. And I after seeing their team, I think that was just a cop-out by some people, because they had some people that could really hit a ball a long way that year.
Well, 2 strikes now on the hitter, Chad Schiffer, junior out of Indian Trail. Another honor roll student among the many here at Plainfield. High, and it makes it a ball, 1 and 2. You know, we mentioned about many of the new Plainfield cable TV viewers here in our area that are, I'm sure, watching this game. Want to send out a special hello to Bill Davis and his family here in Plainfield. The little chopper back to the mound. Wojciechowski will handle himself. High throw, and he's going to be safe. Runner will round second, will go to third. The ball is still in play. If he scores, this ball game is over. And it is. Coming in to score the winning run for the Plainfield Wildcats to give them an 11-1 lead, and in 5 innings of high school baseball, that is a final score. So a big play, and again the errors come into play in the final outcome here as Plainfield sweeps 2 this week from the Lemont Indians, winning earlier in the week 1-0, winning here this afternoon in 5 innings, 11-1. We'll be back to wrap things up and hear from both head coaches, Dwayne Cota of Lemont and Don Martin of Plainfield, when we continue our high school baseball game of the week coverage from Plainfield after this timeout.
That's right.
All right, back down on the field. All has been said and done. The Plainfield Wildcats sweep 2 this week from the Lemont Indians, but neither were easy. Earlier in the week, 1-0. This week, this game, 11-1. The Cats winners in 5 innings. Joe Passion back with you. Jack will join me in a moment. The 2 head coaches of both teams who are going into some heavy-duty conference play for Plainfield in about a week, and this coming weekend for the Indians. Don Martin, the veteran head coach of the Plainfield Wildcats, whose Cats now go to 11-12 overall on the year, while to 7-9 overall in the year, while the Indians drop to 10-13. Dwayne Cota, the head coach of Lemont. First off, I got to ask you, Don, you went out to the mound to talk to Schlieben after he got racked for that 1 hit and 1 run, as he had a no-hitter going, and like his hero Oral Hershiser usually does. What did you tell him in the latter inning? Were you thinking of pulling him? We saw you had another player, Geisler, I believe, warming up.
Well, that's correct. We knew going into the game Dave was only going to throw 4 or 5 innings. And I just wanted him to go out and tell him that, take it easy. This is it. Don't hold back on anything. Not only that, he had a speck in his contact that was costing him some trouble.
Overall, you saw yourself with some infielders here who had some trouble handling ground balls, but yet they made the plays. You've got to be a little bit pleased. You talked about your infield defense being fairly strong, and it's starting to show some consistency.
Yeah, most of the year our infield defense has been one of the stronger points of our ball club, and we just feel we have a good infield defense, but they have to keep helping the pitchers because, as I told you earlier, we don't have blow-them-away type pitchers.
Mm-hmm.
Our infielders are going to handle a lot of balls.
Well, Dwayne, you got to be happy you had a kid who came out for his first start today, although got in a little trouble that 1 inning, but still overall for his first start as formerly middle reliever, it looks like maybe you have another starter in your rotation.
Yeah, we got a really young pitching staff. Anytime Ryan Madden, who started the game, is a sophomore, anytime I can get these guys some work, it's a real plus. I'm thinking for next year, 2 years down the road.
The fact that he pitched well, still was throwing strong despite some errors getting in the way, and you had mentioned that's been a problem. Both coaches having mentioned that the defense backing up the pitchers have been a problem. Where does that consistency come in?
Well, we had been playing real strong defense, and the defense has kind of deserted us here lately. So that's a big lift. The defense seems to go up and down in our team depending on who's pitching. Really, especially in high school ball, you have to play good D. You have to.
I heard you mention in rather humorous overtones to the players from Lemont, we're all watching this closely now, don't come to practice tomorrow. You're giving them a day off, and you made that very serious and very clear to them. Don't show up in your uniform.
Well, we've looked like real bad the past couple of games, and I thought maybe the best thing to do was to give them a day off. We've been baseball since the middle of February, baseball. So I thought maybe if they get their mind off and maybe go out and have some fun on a Friday night, that we'll come back strong.
All right, Coach, I know you've got some non-conference games coming up, starting with this one here. Do you work your rotation differently so you've got the kids strong, or do you give them all a little bit of work so everybody is ready when their conference season heats up a little bit more a week from now?
Well, actually, this was our non-conference week right now when we played Lemont 2 games. We opened a 3-game series with Waubonsie, one of the top-ranked teams in the area. On Monday. We play them Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday of next week. So that'll be a real test for us. We just our goal is to go in there and try and win 2 out of 3. At the time, right now, we're tied with them in the loss column in the conference, and we just want to try and stay even with them.
You know, you told me this is maybe one of the weaker hitting teams you've had in 8 or 9 years, although, as Jack Szymanski pointed out in the telecast, that's not a rip because you've had some rippers on this ball club in the previous years. Do you think that maybe a game like this is going to maybe get a domino effect to your hitters?
Well, you sure hope so. You know, the weather's getting, well, we think the weather's getting better, and that always brings out the sticks. And as I mentioned to Jack the other day, our batting average is not good, but we have hit a lot of atom balls this year, much like the one Chris Priest hit in the last inning at the center fielder made a great play on. I mean, he wailed the tar out of that ball and he got nothing to show for it. We get, seems like 3 or 4 of those a game.
Okay, Dwayne, last thing with you. After the kids return to practice after a day off, you got a big schedule coming up for you. How does the rest of the conference schedule look for you as far as the chances of the Indians coming into the regionals stronger than they look today?
Oh, well, certainly we will. We have a conference that's up for grabs. Right now we're tied with it in the top spot with an Elmwood Park team that's rated in our area. We like to place a lot of our energy and into our conference. My best 9 is always out there for the conference, and that's a big thing. I think 2 things we play for is a conference and in the regionals. We need to show a stronger performance in the regional than we have in the past couple of years. We've bowed out in the first game, and we're going to change that this year.
Don, ditto that. Last question to you. Your conference schedule, and you are also tied for first, so this is going to be another little 7 battle, isn't it?
Well, that's true. The conference is our number 1 priority. Being a medium-sized school as we are, we know playing in the regional that we play in every year over in Joliet or Lockport that we're going to have a tough time getting out of that regional. So our number 1 goal each year is to win the conference and be as competitive as we can after that.
Okay, guys, congratulations on a well-played hard ball game here today. Best of luck the rest of the regular season schedule. Maybe we'll see you on our telecast of the Lockport Regional Finals that will come up here in late May. Thanks, fellas, very much.
Thank you, Joe.
Don Martin and Dwayne Cota, the managers of our 2 ball clubs here today. Plainfield winning it 11-1 in 5 innings for the Cats. 11 runs on 12 hits, 2 errors, and 6 men left on for Plainfield. The winning pitcher, Dave Schleben, now goes to 2-3. The game-winning RBI to Justin Ahoyt with that RBI double back in the first. And for the Lemont Indians, who now go to 11-12 on the year, 1 run, 1 hit, 3 errors, and 3 men left on. The losing pitcher, Ryan Madden, now 2-1 on the year in his first start. And I go back to what both coaches referred to briefly about their main priorities, as all coaches are, the conference season, but they also almost did not want to talk about it. They've got to go to the Lockport Regional, and that has the Joliet Catholics, the Providence Catholics, and, of course, all the Sika West teams. And you know this from having been there, one of the toughest regionals in the state of Illinois every year.
Well, you know, Lemont won't go to that regional because they're Class A, but Plainfield will. And Plainfield is always a tough team to play in the regional because, again, we don't see them. Some of our teams don't see them, and it's hard when you haven't seen a team all year. Go back to the conference. I know that Plainfield plays in this kind of conference. It's a little different than normal. Most conferences, because you usually have 8 teams, you play each team twice. In their conference, they play each team 3 times. Mm-hmm. So you have sort of a 3-game series. That's kind of an interesting thing. I know I believe they lost 2 out of 3 to Morris this year, and you know, kind of you get that rubber game in there sometimes, 1-1. And I imagine that Lemont might have the same situation because I don't believe they have 8 teams in their conference. So conference play, they're playing 6 teams 3 times. They've got 18 games in their conference, so they've got to use games like this to work out some kinks. And look what Plainfield did today. They finally got their bats out and hit the heck out of the ball, and so that'll take them as they go into their conference week. This was their bye week, and they'll go into some conference games next week with some confidence now.
So, of course, Lemont, as a Class A school, will begin their regionals in just a few more weeks, and then the Class AA schools go to battle in postseason play, and Manuka being the other team that I was thinking of that will go into that Lockport regional, and then on to Ingalls Park and Joliet for the Class AA sectionals the last week of May, the first couple days of June, and then on to the IHSA finals in Springfield again this year. Big plus here for Lemont. They may have found another pitcher in a pitching rotation that has been thin, and, of course, a big plus here today for Plainfield. As Jack mentioned, their bats came to play, and that's got to give both clubs, despite one going out a winner, one a loser, something better to feel about from here.
Yeah, another thing, too, with Dave Schliemann coming out and having a good game on the mound. I know, again, he was 7-1 last year, and Don's looking at him to be one of his, top two, and it gives him a lot of confidence. I thought he had a chance at a no-hitter, and as Don said to me a minute ago, it takes a lot of luck to get a no-hitter, and it does. But I thought he had a good shot at it today, the way things were going. I had a feeling it was going to be a 5-inning game. As far as the Lemont pitcher, I think it's awful tough for a pitcher of that stature, his size and his velocity, to come up and pitch on the varsity level. But just getting that experience of getting to go out on the mound, hey, if you got him suited up, and you're going to suit up those kids, those sophomores and freshmen, you better get them out there and get them some experience. And again, you got to build for the future, and that's what he's doing with I believe it was Madden was his name. And just to get him out on the mound, I think will help him down the way. I don't know if he'll do much more pitching for Coach this year, but maybe in the future. Okay, best of our luck to the Lemont Indians as they move along the trail in the Northeast Conference as well. Ditto that for the Plainfield Wildcats in the Little Seven. Want to remind you, next week, join us for our next high school baseball game of the week on Channel 15 when we go to the Ville. The Romeoville Spartans of Coach Brian James in a Sicko West battle against Clyde Odell and the Lockport Porters. Final score once again here from Plainfield. The Cats beat up on the Indians 11-1 in 5 innings. For Jack Szymanski, all of us here at Channel 15, I'm Joe Passion. We'll see you next week from Romeoville on our next high school baseball game of the week. Good night, everyone.